On the 4th of August 1806, the grand undertaking originated in the laudable endeavours of the managing owners of ships in the company's service and the important national objects of increased security to property and revenue, combined with improved accommodation, economy and dispatch, were thus early realised through the liberal subscriptions of the proprietors and the unremitting attentions of the directors of the East India Dock Company. Most people walking past here or driving past on their way to the Blackwall Tunnel are not going to notice this plaque. It's over 200 years old, and what it's doing is it's announcing the opening of the East India Docks in 1806. It was a big event when the docks opened. Apparently people came from the West End and really celebrated the fact that the profits were going to be protected. An interesting fact, they joined together with the West India Dock Company that had previously built the West India Docks, and together built a new road, the Commercial Road, which would take their combined goods into the city. In the city, the goods were stored in the East India Company warehouses in Cutler's Gardens before they were auctioned and sold off, not just around Britain, but also to Europe and elsewhere. The reason that I think it's important, although it's in this very hidden away, invisible place that nobody notices, is because it states very clearly why the docks were built. And it was to protect the profits of the East India Company, which were becoming more and more significant in their links to the British state as well. So we're now standing on the river at the entrance to the East India Dock Complex. We're at the lock gates. What I like to do when I'm here is to imagine the ships, the many, many masted ships that would be coming up from the sea, many at a time as they sailed in from the west and from the east. There would have been a hive of activity, not just around the docks, but around the other parts of the river as well. This was hugely important in terms of the industry that was going on to support the making of the ships, the fitting of the ships, the loading of the goods for export, and of course the unloading and the protection of the goods that were coming in. It's really here that you can imagine the huge investments that the merchants would have made in the building of the complex. But again, it's extremely invisible to most people who even find this place in order to wander around and try and uncover some of the histories here. There is a plaque, I think it's a couple of decades old now, which tries to explain what these docks were and why they were here. But it really doesn't explain the background to the docks. It's written in what I call a mercantile discourse. That is, it refers to the goods and the profits of empire, the people who were responsible for either funding the building of the docks or building the docks themselves. But what it doesn't tell you is, again, about where those profits came from, which was the whole reason for protecting the goods. We don't learn, when we read this plaque, about the impact that the East India Company and later the British Raj had on the lives of people across the Indian subcontinent and beyond. And we don't get to understand why that's significant today in terms of understanding the politics, the economics, the borders that divide different parts of the world. I wonder how many people actually walk along here and notice the wall, let alone think about why the wall is here in this particular place. There's no signage to tell you that this is the wall of the East India Docks. But I actually prefer to call them fortifications rather than walls. If you look at them, you'll see that they're extremely high, but also they're very, very strong. So why were these walls built? For that, we need to think about the East India Company and what it was doing in India at the time. In the 1760s, the East India Company became the de facto ruler of Bengal, Bihar, and Orissa in northeast India. What this meant was that it was no longer primarily a trading company. It was now a tax collector. It was collecting taxes from the people of Greater Bengal and reinvesting those taxes either in its own militias, but also buying up the goods which were being then traded with London, with Britain, and then also, branching out to other parts of the world and Europe. The merchants of the East India Company and the merchants who were involved in the East India Dock Company were needing to protect their profits. The first step of that was actually building the docks in order to bring the ships off the river where they were much more vulnerable, and then building this incredible fortification all around it. And something very important to think about in terms of the goods that were coming in from the east. So here we're talking about tea, spices, drugs, cotton pieces, silk. They were incredibly high value goods. So protecting the profits of those merchants was the key reason for building these docks and for investing such a huge amount of money in building these fortifications. We can't really think of these fortifications without taking another step further back to the people of Bengal, Bihar, Orissa at the end of the 1700s. It's really very important in the context of today's world to continually make that link between the role of the East India Company, its links with the British government, and what was happening to ordinary people on the ground in South Asia and in East Asia at the time. We're now standing in the export dock of the East India Dock complex, but there's nothing here to tell you that. Behind me, you can see this huge monument to the Virginia settlers. When regeneration of the docks took place, there was obviously a decision made that it's those links with Virginia and the US that need to be remembered rather than the links with the East and with the East India Company. The significance for me is the choice to remember this link with Britain's colonial past. I feel that there should be a much more complex history told through the plaques, through the naming of buildings, through the road names. One which doesn't just glorify the euphemistic settlement of Virginia, but one that begins to understand why the East India Docks were built, the links between the East India Dock Company and the West India Dock Company, the links that both of those companies had with the earlier companies, the Royal African Company and the Virginia Company. It's often thought that presenting these more complex histories are going to make them inaccessible to people who are just passing through. But from my perspective, people who are just passing through are carrying with them their own knowledge and their own understandings, which they're able to add to those more complex stories.